Welcome to Dadi SOS Study on Spotlight. I'm Belinda.
I'm Rachel.
So Rachel, talking about study abroad, which country comes to your mind first?
For me, I think it's the country of kangaroo.
So is it Australia?
Yeah.
So today we are having Elena with us today. Hi,
Welcome.
Elena.
Hello, hi, happy to be here. I'm Elena from Western Sydney University. So we have 11 campuses in the Western Sydney region, and our main campus is only 20 minutes away from Sydney City.
So firstly, we would like to thank Western Sydney University for sponsoring this video, and we are also very pleased to have Elena with us today.
There are more and more study abroad destination for students to choose from. So from different perspective, do you think Australia is still a choices for students to choose?
A good choice. I would agree. I would think so, for a number of reasons. It's a home away from home. Because of, especially where our university, our main campuses are situated in Parramatta City, there is a huge Southeast Asian and Asian population. So sometimes it might feel like, oh, I haven't really left Malaysia when you look around. So, you don't feel like you're so far away from home, and there are lots of things that will be familiar. And things that, initially you might think you might not need, but when you are craving home-cooked food and dishes, that, there are restaurants that you can access and get, your favorite chicken rice or noodles or to the extent even roti canai or nasi lemak. And those things, when you're missing home and when you're feeling homesick, they actually make a huge difference. So one of the reasons is, it's diversity, where, cultures and people are concerned from all over the world, where food and, everything else is accessible to you. We're not that far away from Malaysia. You can, within 7.5 to 8 hours, you'll be able to reach home. I think another thing that helps, especially when you're missing home, when you first get there, it's all the excitement and everything, and then you realize, okay, it's going to take a little bit longer for me to make friends and to really settle into this new environment and having to do everything for myself. And when that happens and you need to reconnect with family and friends back home, there's ultimate maximum would be a 3-hour time difference. And that really makes a difference when you're reconnecting, trying to chat or do your video calls with family and friends. If they're in a completely different time zone sometimes, that window for you to reach out is a lot smaller. Well, aside from that, of course, where educational opportunities are concerned, there are a number of different programs that students can choose to undertake. Aside from that, there are opportunities for post-study work rights after they've graduated. And I think these, in a nutshell, so I feel like it's away from home, but, if you ever need anything to sort of numb the homesickness, it's readily available. It's within reach.
So people always talking about the benefits, right? Apart the time zone, right? Is it any disadvantages of any that the reason that parents are always concerned about that? Why are you going to Australia? The disadvantages.
The disadvantages of going to Australia, I think for Malaysians, one of the things that can be a little bit of a deterrent would be the IELTS requirement. And so that's something that I would talk to students about. Start preparing yourself way in advance. And don't wait until, it's just before you're applying to university. And then, of course, if you're going to go into the allied health programs, there's a much higher entry requirement for IELTS. Teaching and nursing and, these kind of programs, your speaking and listening skills for, expected reasons will be a lot higher. And so that would be a little bit of a struggle. And here we're so used to our rojak way of talking, 3 languages can be in one sentence, right? Whether it's our mother tongue or English and Malay. And so that would be a little bit of a struggle, I believe, or a disadvantage for our Malaysian students, especially, those who don't speak English at home or have not put in the time and effort to really develop their communication skills in English. And I think that's something that's going to come in handy to you not just during your education, but further down the line, if you're going to be an expatriate living somewhere else in another non-English speaking country, English is the universal language. It's the most popular language, and it's always going to benefit you. So that could be one of the disadvantages, I would think, for students from Malaysia considering education in Australia.
So based on your sharing, it sounds like not much difference studying in Australia from Malaysia. So in terms of weather, time zone, or culture or food or anything. So maybe based on your personal experience, do you face any culture shock when you first time to be in Australia?
Culture shock, I wouldn't say. The surprising thing is for me. Okay, so I grew up in Malaysia, and then I live now in Singapore and I do visit the campuses and visit Australia a couple of times a year. The culture shock is how friendly people are. And sometimes I can disappear in a crowd, in Malaysia and Singapore, nobody really notices you.
Yes.
But there, people hold the door open for you, and so that was a little bit of a shock for me. If I was about to cross the road and there wasn't a zebra crossing, in Malaysia's and the zebra crossings are invisible.
Yeah, no one really cares. Yeah,
exactly. But in Australia, and I've experienced this a number of times, the cars stop when you want to cross the road, even if there isn't a zebra crossing.
Oh.
So that was a little bit of whoa, they're happy to stop, or if you put your indicator and you want to, switch lanes, they would slow down. In Singapore, it's kiasu. They want to be no, I cannot. You go after me.
You cannot lose.
Whoa, people actually, take notice of your indicator.
Yes.
And respect it. And, people don't seem to be in so much of a hurry. And I think that, a number of factors fall into place, I think, that contribute to that. Work-life balance is definitely a lot more evident than it is here. And, I think, we will chat about shops and opening hours. It's shocker, right? Because late night shopping is till 9 p.m.
Yeah. I heard that Australia, a lot of shops close early.
Yeah,
okay.
Which I think is excellent. I mean, if you're moving in the direction of, wanting to improve the quality of your life, I don't think it's found in a mall. I mean, ultimately, when you do spend time in the mall, you end up spending money unnecessarily. You're not hungry, but you're tempted with all the different cafes and everything, or shopping for things you don't need, when that time could be spent building relationships, time with your family and friends. And for me, what always comes to mind, and whether it's work or study or, is this line that, nobody on their dying bed ever said, I wish I worked harder. It's always about, I wish I spent more time with my family and friends, and I wish I built these relationships and invested in them. So I'm glad the shops close early, actually.
So for me, actually, we are working nearby the shopping mall, right? After work, actually, we also meet our friends nearby here, or just walk around alone to buy something, buy some new stuff.
It is an opportunity to meet with friends. But I think here it's because you don't want to get stuck in traffic, right? So you don't leave immediately after work. You hang out a bit and have your dinner, or go for a movie or something, and then when the traffic is eased up, then you head on home. So so there, I don't feel a huge problem with the shops closing early. There's still supermarkets that are open that you can access your groceries, even past the regular shopping hour closures.
Like Malaysia, right? And also Singapore. Actually, we get a summer. Fall season of summer. Okay.
Yes.
So how about Australia? Is it very cold in winter or very hot in summer, during summer?
So it's a different kind of heat. Sometimes you might not think it's hot because the wind is nice and cool, but you'll feel it later. So it's a dry and hot heat during summer. So that, you have to go out with protection. You have to have your wide rim hats or caps, or and your sunblock. You have to protect yourself. And here, it's you get tired, right? Even if it's a short distance, the idea of walking to the train station is, oh gosh, you're going to be pouring in sweat because of the humidity. And there you don't feel that tiredness. So it's a different kind of heat. It is hot, but it's not sticky and icky and, you don't feel all tired. Winters are bearable in Sydney. Compared to other parts like Tasmania or even Melbourne has colder winters than Sydney. So it is bearable. And if you're comparing with winters in the UK, when it can be really grey and dark and cold and depressing, try spending a Christmas in the UK. It's hard to keep your spirits up if you want to go outdoors, in Australia, Christmas is during summer, but the winters are a lot milder than in the UK.
Sounds good.
And then, of course, you have, if you go to Japan, you have the cherry blossoms. And for us, it's, in October, November in our university, we have the beautiful jacaranda trees in full bloom, beautiful purple flowers. And so it's the cherry blossoms of Australia. Here you get up and it's burning hot, and then you wait for the sun to go down. But before you can go out, it's pouring rain. It's one extreme or the other. And another thing, like here, I feel outside it's so cold, it's so hot, and then you go into a mall and you're freezing. Right? So you have your summer and your winter.
So keep cold, hot, and cold and hot.
Like how do I dress, for the indoors and the outdoors, right?
So talking about the temperatures, like the weather in Australia, so like any specific activities that must do like during summer or winter, like any recommendations?
Summer, of course, everybody goes out to the beaches. They're packed. Like I said, our main campuses are only 20 minutes away from Sydney City. And then you've got, all the famous beaches like Bondi and Manly and that you can go and hang out. That's what everybody does. It's a great place a great time for people watching on the beaches. For me, it's when the weather permits, is just to immerse yourself in nature. There's so many amazing wonders to explore in Australia. The animals themselves are so incredible. You can't find them anywhere else in the world. To go to all these different places and really enjoy what nature has to offer. In Malaysia, we've got beautiful beaches. We've got, amazing, even, if you're going hiking and mountains and so on, but it always is dependent on the weather. Whereas, there's a longer period, between seasons. When it's not too hot or not too cold for you to really spend time enjoying and exploring the outdoors.
So talking about the nature, wildlife. So I saw a lot of videos that shows Australia have a lot of insects like came into their house.
Right, yes.
Yeah, even in the toilet bowl. Yeah.
Okay.
So do you experience any of it?
Yes, okay. There are issues with bugs, but likewise, there are always ways for you to protect yourself, right? There are deadly spiders. So, here we're not afraid when we see a spider, right?
We just a tiny one.
There's tiny little, okay. So those, sometimes they're not that big, but they can be deadly. So you have to educate yourself and be smart about it. And, don't take things, as lightly as you would here. But having said that, we've got mosquitoes that can cause dengue, So, everywhere you go, you're going to come across all kinds of interesting creatures. In fact, there is insects that are currently endangered in Australia, and they're asking the population to help with not eradicating and destroying them completely, because then they're required for the ecosystem to run effectively. But it's just taking necessary precautions. Like I went out yesterday for a walk around Desa Park City, and I made sure that I had my Mozzie guard on, because the time that you can actually go out and exercise in Malaysia is so limited. You either go like 6 o'clock in the morning or like 7 o'clock at night to avoid the heat. There are things that you can do at different times of the day with the weather being a little bit kinder. So when you do go out, make sure that you're well protected, you're aware of your surroundings. No, not just for insects, but just keeping safe anywhere. You have to take certain precautions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm a person who really like afraid of insects. So if I went to Australia, I met a lot of insects. So any like specific organization that can help me to like move them out, or like every Australian already get used to it, like they have to handle by themselves.
So like if it was in your living quarters, for example, like your student accommodation, you go, there's staff. Like for example, in our student village, we have staff on duty 24 hours. So you go and get help from them. If you don't know how dangerous the insect is, I would advise you not to try and remove it yourself, but to get someone. And there are organizations that can help you, especially if you do think you've encountered a deadly spider, that you can contact. There are hotlines you can call for them to come and assist you, but get help, immediately within. In your student village, for example, getting the staff to come and help you out. Yeah, they're better equipped, I think, and understand these creatures a little better than us from Malaysia.
Rachel, there'll be 24/7 stuff on call.
Okay, no worries then.
Okay, there'll be. Then talking about daily life, right? I would like to ask about the garbage disposal. I mean, that Malaysia actually is quite lack of this knowledge because we are not like doing this kind. Is it Australia will be like as strict as like Japan or South Korea have to do it?
They don't weigh your garbage like they do in South Korea. In South Korea, people think twice about eating a watermelon because the rind is so heavy, and it'll cost them a lot to dispose it. So it's not as strict as that. There are specific bins that you use for the type of garbage. Your recyclables. You got your yellow bin and your green bin and your red bin so you have to sort your garbage. And being from Western Sydney University, so for the third year running, we just got the results just this week that we're number one in the world for sustainable development goals.
Wow.
Yeah, so number one university in Australia and in the world, and we competed against close to 2,000 other institutions to ensure that we maintain this ranking by the Times Higher Education for the third year running. So, it's just getting into that spirit of doing our part to protect Mother Earth for future generations. And, even if we do decide after studying in Australia, we want to come back to Malaysia, we continue with that practice, because we've learned the proper way of disposing, and there are organizations that you can call when you want, for example, it's not going to cost you an arm and a leg, like if you're removing bulky furniture within the state of New South Wales. There are organizations that you can call to help with that removal. Some of these services are available free of charge. You can take your trash, if it's huge, to kips that are situated all over the city to dispose of. So it's not as strict as in Japan and South Korea, but you have to sort your trash. And you have to know what days to throw what.
Okay,
Yeah.
that doesn't like Malaysia.
No.
Everyone throw everything in the
Same bin.
in the same bin.
Yes.
Yeah, with this to eat it.
Well, it's about time. So, hopefully the future generation from being educated, living and studying abroad will come back and start implementing that. Just because the government doesn't, enforce that as a law doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah.
So talking about the Western Sydney University, have a very high ranking in the sustainable development. So, if I want to ask what is the 3 adjective of a benefit of studying in Western Sydney, Australia, what would be?
The benefit. So let me describe what I think Western Sydney University students are. I'll just use 3 adjectives to describe them. And this was, something that I sort of, was thinking about for an earlier presentation. I would say that our students are driven, they're socially responsible, and they're passionate. And, driven in the sense that when they come to study with us, and they come from all walks of life, from different backgrounds, different upbringing, different culture, because a tremendous diversity is found at our university. And when I say that they're driven, sometimes when you go overseas to study, it's not easy because you don't have your support system that you've had through your primary school and secondary school education. Some of us grew up with helpers at home. We didn't have to worry about any chores or looking for food. And, so when you get there, sometimes there's everything that you have to do for yourself.
Yes.
And sometimes that can get a little overwhelming. And so, having to cope with all of that, students need a certain sort of character. And for, just digressing a little, for students who, sometimes go and suddenly it's like, culture shock, and, I have to do everything for myself, and they might need a little bit of support. I am proud to say that Western Sydney University is, as cliche as it sounds, is well known for being the university that cares. So going to our student services, it's something that is open and available for students all the time. They can make appointments to go in and chat with someone. They can even do it via an app called Talk Campus, where we've got students that are trained to just chat with you, to be a friend. And that, so being able to go out and get the help that you need when you need it, it's a special characteristic that I've seen in some of our students from Malaysia. And some do struggle. Some, go there and they're like, I'm totally free. I can do whatever I want, totally independent, and they thrive. But some need a little bit more support. And that through that you can see that aspect of being, driven to achieve their goals. And they know, they don't take it for granted that their parents are investing a lot of money in their education, and they want to do well. And that's what I've seen. Socially responsible, and that comes in line with us and not just, the Sustainable Development Goals. We're number one in the world for gender equality, and, all of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals from, clean water and sanitation, and a whole list of other things that, that we ensure that we meet in order to gain this number one ranking. So socially responsible students and passionate. And where we come into play is giving the students the opportunity when it comes to really graduating job ready.
Wow.
Yeah, and that happens through their job placements, their work integrated learning programs that the students will be exposed through, so that, yes, when they're ready, when they've graduated, they're not just, like, what do I do now, with no experience of what it's like in the outside world.
They'll be ready for their job
I
and
hope so.
grow to the practical life, right?
Yes. Yeah, and the opportunities are given to them to be able to access that and to use it to their advantage. Yeah.
I think university life, especially study overseas, that will be like totally different of the students types. One will be like get freedom away from their parents' control, and then there will be also that away from their parents' support. They'll be very afraid about their independent life. So it's
True.
I think it will be a good experience about that.
Yeah, and we can see, like, students who've never worked, like never worked part-time while studying, that's a thing that's very common in Australia.
Yeah.
I mean, students start working from the time they're 14. And I don't think any of us worked when we were 14 growing up in Malaysia. And that's another thing that, that is a huge advantage for students going there to study, especially when, you don't want to tax your parents financially, completely for the entire duration of your study, is being able to work part-time with the minimum wage just increasing. I think it's starting from the 1st of July to $24.10 per hour. So that's about 75 ringgit an hour. That's the minimum wage. And they can earn, depending on their age, and a lot more than that, up to 100 ringgit an hour. And, so when you've got your, let's say, tuition fees that your parents see to, your living expenses, or at least your accommodation, your day-to-day for your food, your phone bill, your transport, it's, that's something that you can easily fund by working part-time.
So it means they can cover their living expenses.
Part of it, not entirely, but, like I said, who earns 75 ringgit an hour here working at, at a bubble tea or, in a cafe or a supermarket? There's no way.
Yeah, because there's also students like quite afraid to ask the living expenses from their parents, but probably their parents will ask, you have not enough living expenses this month again. Probably they get these questions.
Yeah. So you can't be asking parents for allowance when you're studying overseas, right? So go out and work, and that will help build you and, and prepare you for the working world.
I just want to ask a question because, a lot of students say that Sydney is very expensive compared with other cities in Australia. Is that really true?
If you were living in Sydney City, yes, it's considerably higher. But if you're looking at just like student accommodation in some of our campuses, or student villages like Penrith, or even our regional campus in Hawkesbury or in Campbelltown, accommodation is as low as 190 per week versus 400 and above in Sydney City. So that is a huge difference. It's less than half. We also have accommodation scholarships, which students can apply for, and it's $150 per week. I don't think you'll be able to find that in other major cities in Australia.
But I mean, because, Australia is quite big, especially Sydney being such a big city. In Malaysia, a lot of people drive. And I suppose would you recommend students to drive as well? Would that maybe occur a bit more costs because they have to maintain a car or public transport?
Well, it depends on, if you are, let's say you're studying in Campbelltown, you're a Bachelor of Medical Science student, so that's our medical facility where our nursing and Doctor of Medicine and other allied health programs are conducted. If you are studying in Campbelltown and you live in Campbelltown, what do you need a car for?
Weekends.
Weekends. Yeah, and it's not, if you're taking the train, it's less than an hour. And, and it's very different from using, the trains. Like, for example, here, we've got a really good system, actually. Like in KL, if you wanted to go to Ipoh, it's a very nice ride. And the trains there are comfortable. You can eat in the train. The scenery is amazing. So it all depends on, the lifestyle of the student. If you're working and you need to get to work and it's some distance away, owning a car is something that they can consider. But, looking at everything else that comes into play with the risk of owning a car and, and insurance and, depending on what kind of driver, there's a lot of things that students would probably have to discuss with their parents, another liability to take on. I'd rather be worry-free and just get on the trains. And so any campus of ours that is not walking distance to a train station, we have a free shuttle service. So the shuttle bus takes you from the train station to the campuses and to the student village, if it's not walking distance. Yeah.
But would you say an average weekly spending for a student is?
Weekly spending, depending on their lifestyle. So we're not talking about accommodation, and I would say weekly, $200 a week. And another thing, like when I speak to students and, we're getting them their pre-departure, getting them ready to go to Australia, even from the time they first come to chat with us, I always say, please learn to cook before you go to Australia. Because it's not like here. You can't go out and have roti canai, and it's not going to cost the same. So, and especially when you're missing home-cooked food, and like I said, they're Asian grocers. And I remember, visiting and taking Haidi Lao soup bases and to Australia. And when I arrived, I was told, why did you bring this? Because, it's so easily available. And so one of the things to help to sort of defray the cost of food and eating out is expensive, is being able to prepare meals yourself. There are, yes, a lot of Malaysians. We have a campus in Bankstown, a very cool sort of Lego out of place structure with a huge Vietnamese population. So if you're looking for really authentic Vietnamese pho, that would be the place to go. Yeah, so and like I mentioned, restaurants, Southeast Asian food is readily accessible. Ingredients, grocers.
At the start, you did mention, you're located at Parramatta City.
So
yes, is that still part of Sydney?
So Parramatta City is 20 minutes away by train from Sydney City. And it is the third largest central business district in Australia after Sydney City and Melbourne, but is the fastest growing. So now 30% of the top 500 companies have opened an office in Parramatta City. They're moving out of Sydney City, mainly because of rent, and also because of the boom that's happening. In 2026, we will see the opening of the Western Sydney Airport, and right next to it will be Badgerys Creek Aerotropolis, a commercial and business hub where businesses will be opening up their offices as well. So Parramatta City is not far from Sydney City, and that's where 3 of our campuses are. So we've got Parramatta South, which is about, if you take the shuttle bus from Parramatta train station, it's about a 10-minute ride. And then in Parramatta City itself, we have our Parramatta City campus. That's where our School of Business is located. And in fact, top floors of that campus are occupied by one of the big fours, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and they take interns only from us. So they recruited 125 of our students, 50% domestic and 50% international, and from different faculties and different schools, not just from the School of Business. So that's right in the center, Parramatta City. And then we've got our Hassel Street campus, which is our engineering hub, and it's where our international college is located. So Parramatta City Campus School of Business next to the train station, and Hassel Street is just across the road. So all walking distance and very, very convenient. And there is a student village that is a short shuttle bus ride away. Yeah, like I said, the third largest CBD and up and coming. We do have a regional campus, which is Hawkesbury. So there's the extended post-study work rights if you choose to study like a Bachelor of Science or Master of Food Science and Criminology in Hawkesbury. And so Hawkesbury, and then we've got Penrith. Now, those 2 campuses are actually at the foot of the Blue Mountains, which is the Three Sisters of Katoomba, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So that one's a little bit far out for good reason, but it comes with its, a different allure and different appeal to students who are tired of the city and just want to get away and be immersed in nature when you're studying, agri-foods or zoology. That you'd be some distance away from the CBD.
Yeah, there's also a lot of options for students to choose whether they want to go for which kind of university life, since there are quite different campus life.
That's
but
right.
since when we consult with students, we receive a lot of students concerning about the environment of the campuses also. We ask about what's surrounding for the campus, and then the university life, how their daily life will be. A lot of people asking this kind of questions. And then when we consult the student, we also try to ask them to find out whether they want to go for which kind like city life, or you want to go like more local life, I can say that.
Yeah, and so what's happened, like for example, if students decide to pursue a Bachelor of Business, you could do it in our city campus, which is Parramatta City, or you could do it in Bankstown City. And you can apply for doing a semester in a different campus. So you can just, sort of experience like a change of scenery. You can give yourself that opportunity.
So students don't have to choose, because they can experience 2 kind of life.
Yes,
Very flexible.
Yeah, just for one semester. I mean, it might be a little bit of an inconvenience for you traveling if you're, depending on where your student village is and your accommodation. But if it's for a semester, I think, it's a good experience to just see a different part of Australia, specifically a different part of Western Sydney region.
So understand that students can like study abroad, like they will get freedom, but like the safety problem still an issue for parents. So recently I heard that a news that in the Sydney city centre there was a stabbing cases.
Right. Yes.
So
in a
is that
mall.
common like happening in Sydney? So any areas that would not recommend for students to come?
Well, I mean, where it happened, it's a mall that's frequented by, students studying in universities in Sydney City. It was an isolated case. These sort of things happen. They happen all over the world, irrespective of whether it's a major city or smaller towns. It's terrible for the victims and, of course, of the families involved of that horrific event that happened. Where general crime and safety is concerned, like here as well, there are certain parts of KL that I might not go to at night, and and to really be able to practice put into practice things to keep yourself safe. So don't go out at night alone. Don't walk down a dark alley. There's these usual things. Be very aware of your surroundings. Don't be so engrossed on your phone that you don't see who is around you. It's really funny. So my daughters grew up in Singapore, and we were here in this mall right next to your office just a few days ago. And I was oblivious. I don't pay attention when people talk to me unless, I know them. So, and my daughter was with me, and she's 25 years old. She just finished university. And there was a guy following us and asking us questions. And so she grew up in Singapore, okay? So she's paranoid when she comes here, because it's a completely different environment than what she grew up in, right? It's here, right here in KL. And she, and I was like, just ignore him and just looking at her being so afraid. So, you have to know how to take care of yourself and so don't go out in a group, for example, and look after yourself. Like, how do you avoid, for example, the stabbing in Sydney? It's such a horrific incident that happened. There's no way of avoiding these kind of things if it happens. It is unfortunate, for people to be in that situation at that time when somebody sort of just lost control and decided to inflict hurt on the innocent. And, these things, I don't think we can set out to avoid them. It happened in a mall. Nobody did anything to deserve that. They didn't, they were not, it wasn't risky behavior. But terribly unfortunate that it happened. But, for day-to-day life, just be smart about, where you go, at what time. And if you're going out to exercise, do you need to go out when it's not safe? We've got gyms in our student, some of our campuses, in all our student villages, outdoor gyms and spaces that are safe for you to exercise in. So to just make good choices to make sure you put yourself, in a safe environment and not take risks that could end badly.
So students has to be smart.
Yes.
Don't walk at the alley, especially in the nighttime.
And alone. Yeah.
Alone.
Especially alone. Yeah.
So, as Malaysia, right, has a lot of education system that there's more and more universities, colleges nowadays. So is it like overseas study at Australia? Is it still like very necessary for students to go? Since we also have Australia system in Malaysia now.
Right. I strongly believe that one of the ways to really broaden your horizons and to give you an opportunity to see the world in a different way is through being able to study abroad. It's different when you're traveling. Your mood is different. You just go out there and you're having fun and you're doing all the fun things. But to actually live in another country and to find your way around and to settle in and to deal with everything on your own really helps you grow up, broadens your horizons, and gives you a better view of, of how to deal with people and different cultures and different backgrounds. And it's a learning opportunity that you will not be able to access by just traveling and living at home. So if you have the opportunity, you have the means, you have the financial ability to experience that, it'll do you a world of good. And it's if you choose to go and study overseas, I always tell students, no matter how much you love your hometown and your country of origin, give yourself the opportunity to work after you've studied. And with the post-study work rights, that's something that's possible. And to give yourself that opportunity, and then when you're done, you can always come back.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah, but and as we see, the older you get, the harder it is to be able to go overseas to study.
Yeah. Probably
So,
as a student, there's like the opportunity for the students to experience the local resident life when during their university life. Because after that, they'll be very hard to go access this kind of life already.
That's right. Yeah. And so I used to teach English to a lot of expatriates from non-English speaking countries, and so it would be it could be either the parent, the husband, or the wife, or the children. And when you see the kids that have come, like they could have come from UAE or Saudi Arabia or Germany, France, depending on whichever country, you see the transformation in even the adults and the children from living in a different country. And I think it just makes us more universal. It teaches us to be, tolerant, to be more accepting of different people and different cultures. We're less racist when we're living in different countries, dealing with different cultures and different religions. I think it just makes us a better human being and a better world citizen when we are able to immerse ourselves in a different culture in a different country. So I would advise parents. I know the cost is tremendous, looking at the exchange rate, but I think it's an investment that truly will pay off in the long run. And when you're able to give yourself options, that option window, as you get older, sometimes becomes smaller and smaller and smaller. So, give yourself that opportunity, invest, and you will definitely reap the rewards.
Yeah. So I'm curious about after the student completed their studies,
Yes.
right? So like any specific expertise, for them to easy to get work in Australia or get permit or something like this?
So depending on what they study, there is the post-study work rights for their usual undergraduate degree. But then, you look at programs that are in demand, that could be an extension as well. So, so they have to select very carefully. And that's something that I think sometimes, just based on the conversations I've had with SPM school leavers, they have no idea what they want to do. And they don't have any idea what the real jobs entail. They have a fantasy. So, they watch a TV show and they think, oh, I want to be a lawyer. But they don't understand, it is not an easy program to do. And there are other options, an easy program. And when you've graduated as well, getting into the workforce is, lawyers are in demand. But before you can actually establish yourself, it is tremendous work. So first and foremost, students need to be prepared of how long it's going to take for you to get to where you want to go. So I always talk to students and I say, talk to people in jobs that you think you'd like to do or you might be passionate in. That will give you a real world view of what it's like, not your fantasy TV show, Suits or CSI. We have a lot of interested students wanting to do criminology. But do they know exactly what it entails or forensic science? You can't base it on a TV show. You have to speak to, individuals who are in those roles. So how prepared are they for the for the working world, one of which that we are proud of is our job placement. So we have the Bachelor of Cyber Security and Behavior. It's a program that is under $30,000 per year, Australian dollars. And the entire third year is job placement. It's embedded job placement. So by the time they graduate, they've had already 1 year of work experience. So which employer would not want to snap them up? You don't have to train them from scratch on what it's like in the working world. And there are different, components to 450 hours of industrial experience if you're doing our Bachelor of Engineering, our honors program. Or you're doing an entire semester of internship or working on a business project if you're doing the Bachelor of Business. So, students already have an idea. They get their foot in the door through all their work experience. And then it's up to them, to prove themselves when they're in there. And the chances of, that company that you're doing your internship with keeping you on is tremendous. Like we've got a student from Bachelor of Social Work who is working for PricewaterhouseCoopers now.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's not, like I said, not just the traditional business degrees or accounting degrees that will get you hired by the big fours. It's even Bachelor of Social Work. Yeah.
Because of Australia, a lot of wildlife, right? So is it the job demand is more related to animals?
Well, if you go to Hawkesbury, our regional campus, yes, you can do, zoology and animal science if that's what you want to do. So it's not, it's, it is a growing economy. Like I said, the tremendous development that's happening within the Western Sydney region requires for individuals from, a number of industries, engineering, construction, medical science. We've got the Westmead Health Precinct. In fact, one of the group of 8 universities is opening up a campus in Western Sydney for their medical science programs because they know that there is a tremendous demand, with allied health, for allied health professionals. And so there are always going to be demand, with aging population, with healthcare, after the COVID and all the health scares that have come our way. We know that health is wealth, and lots of people are looking into putting more focus into, making sure that we're healthy individuals to sustain us for a healthy and hopefully long life as well. So it's not just animals, but it's very people oriented. It's very business oriented, and so like I said, just for students to do their research. The problem is now I think students have too much information. And then they end up being lost, and they have no idea.
Too much of choices.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not international. Internet can get a lot of information.
Yeah, and sometimes it can be conflicting. So talk to people, And so what I do, if I've got a student interested in, so recently I had a student who was interested in Bachelor of Music. So I put them in touch with a current student who's doing their Bachelor of Music at Penrith in one of our campuses. And so to get an idea of what the program is like, and hopefully also what can they do with that degree? I too wanted to know what can you do with a Bachelor of Music degree, and all the different, employers or that you could reach out to or apply to upon graduation. There's also all the ICT, computer science, information systems. So sometimes students are a little bit lost, and this I heard from one of our professors from the School of Computing. If you're not sure if you should do ICT, computer science, or computer systems, information systems, it doesn't matter. Just come in. And within the first year, you'll be able to get a better idea of the differences between these programs, and then you can make your decision. So it's pretty flexible in that first year for you to move around a bit before you decide on year 2 onwards. So huge demand, from every industry is looking to protect their data. So going into, AI, for example, would be highly in demand. And so, those are the ones. And of course, like I said, Bachelor of Cybersecurity. We've had instances of, when going back to the medical care of hospitals in Ireland under attack by hackers, and, patients couldn't get their appointments, couldn't get their medication. So, every industry needs protection. And our Bachelor of Cybersecurity and Behavior is a unique program. It's the only one in Australia that is a cross-disciplinary program. So we've got units from the School of Computing and also psychology units studying, the ethical mind of a hacker and ethical hacking. And that's a program that I believe is highly in demand, and it increases your employability as well. And, usually, so, from my experience as a teacher before, so for students to understand, if English is, not a language that they've spoken growing up, it can be a problem. How we say the word today, and it's to die, could die, could die, might. Yeah. When might is a completely different word, I might see you tomorrow, as opposed to mate. So if you haven't spoken English and you're learning it, and then you suddenly hear an Australian, a very strong Australian accent, it might be difficult for you, but I don't think it's going to be an issue for Malaysians. And with all the laws, and this is so fascinating. I don't know whether MasterChef Australia had a part to play in it. Australians are in love with Malaysian food. And they know sambal and rendang, and it's, and the number of former Malaysians who've actually won the Australian MasterChef or were one of the finalists. Yeah, there are quite a number. So they are very well versed with our accent. I have got Australian friends who've never lived in Malaysia, but when they talk to me, they love to use the word la, always in the wrong place. It's so funny. They think they can put la anywhere.
Every second word.
It's hilarious. But they love it, and they, and I think, it's not like before. Many, many years ago, when it was so our accents and our food and everything was so foreign. You see Australians making rendang on MasterChef. Like, can you believe that? It's unbelievable. But yeah, and that's why I said, Malaysians going to study in a Western Sydney University, they won't have an issue. They won't miss home. They might miss the people. I don't think they'll miss the weather. They won't miss the food.
Okay, so our video has come to an end. So again, very big thank you to Miss Elena to sharing with us about the Western Sydney University and also like the life in Australia. So let us have more understanding about it. If you want to more understanding about Western Sydney University or study abroad in Australia, welcome to contact Dadi Education Malaysia. So if you have any topic you would like to know, please leave your comment below, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.